Welcome to Roots and Resilience. I'm Dr. Tejal.
And I'm Dr. Nehal. We have had some incredible conversations with inspiring individuals that we feel compelled to share with you all.
Listen with an open mind and an open heart. You never know, you might just pick up a pearl that might spark something in you.
Enjoy.
Welcome back for another exciting episode of Roots and Resilience, and we are so thrilled to have a special lady joining us all the way from Bangkok, defying the time zones. We have here today Salma, who is a maths teacher at an international school in Bangkok. She's also the safeguarding lead, and in a few months will be the head of middle school. She's also a daughter, sister, wife, and mother to a gorgeous 3-year-old, and we are really excited for this conversation. And thank you for being here, Salma.
Thank you very much for having me.
Wonderful. Well, let's take it right back to baby Salma, little Salma. Tell us about
Yeah.
where you were born, where you grew up.
If I take it even way back before me, just to give a bit of context, my parents are Sudanese. They grew up in mainly Khartoum, in the capital city. My dad a little bit out of there, and then moved there for uni. They got married, moved to the UK in the late 70s, so late 70s, 80s, and then have been there basically ever since. So I came along in 1990. I was born in Surrey, very just quiet little area. Back in the day, you could just kind of go out, ride your bike, and in the road and play with your neighbours, and there were no concerns. Um, Spent about 6 years of my life there, and then we relocated to Dubai for a few years. My dad got a job opening up his the office in Dubai for the company that he was working with. So we were there for a few years. Moved back to the UK, and thank God I moved back to the UK because I then went to NLCS and got to meet the lovely Tejal and Nehal as well. So yeah, and then from then it was kind of rest of my education in London, did my GCSEs, my A levels, went to UCL, studied economics, worked in PR for a couple of years after I graduated in London, which was very exciting for a 20-something-year-old wanting to explore, um, you know, the nightlife, the social life, and getting to know people. After a while, it got a little bit tedious for me. So that's when I decided to do my teaching degree. And I did it with Teach First, which was an incredible experience. Putting myself in positions and locations that I never would have never opened my eyes to if it wasn't for Teach First. So I actually moved to Wales and trained in Wales for 2 years before then moving to Sudan for 4 years, where I met my husband, now husband. And then COVID hits. Everyone's got a COVID story. Ours was we moved back to the UK. We had our son, Nilo, and then that international itch just kind of never went away. So last year we moved to Bangkok, and we've been here ever since.
Wow.
Wow. I love that phrase, international itch. International itch sums you up, Salma.
Yeah.
And what it is, firstly, and a really beautiful story that you've had. You've moved around. You have such a wonderful, loving family that Tej and I have been privileged to meet as well. You mentioned that international itch. What joy does it bring you moving around countries, or what's your favorite thing about it?
I mean, I think the itch itself comes from the fact that my family are located all over the world. And that's always been a thing for me. It's always been our holidays have never really been like the standard holidays that maybe kind of people that I would know would have. It's been always going to visit family. And fortunately enough, a lot of my family emigrated from Sudan to go and, look for educational opportunities beyond. So, family in Sweden, in Canada, the US, all different places in the Gulf. And I think the fact that my family has been so, I mean, not nomadic, but kind of dispersed all over the world has just exposed me to that, being able to go and expose myself to different cultures, and see that, there's more beyond where I am. And that was the thing I got stuck in London with, that London tunnel vision. There's nothing else outside of London. Why would you go anywhere other than London? which is why I was so grateful that I relocated to Wales, because that opened my eyes to actually, if I'm just thinking of the UK context, there's so much more beyond London. So much more beyond, in the UK beyond London. And I think that is true with the rest of the world. There's just so much richness out there. There's negative things as well, but obviously, each coin has both sides. And me marrying an Italian man, me being British with Sudanese origins, having a son who is a mixture of all those things, we just wanted to make sure that he was exposed to all of that, and he understood his own internationality, but also in the context of another environment. Don't even know if I really answered your question, but
You have.
Okay.
That's really wonderful. And I think, well, obviously we've known you for a long time, Salma, and we've known that you've moved around a little bit. But I'd love to know a little bit about. So you went into economics. I know there was you did consider medicine, and you were very sort of, with our chemistry teacher, really encouraged you to consider medicine. He really wanted you to do medicine, and
Yeah.
you explored it, realized it wasn't for you, and went to do economics. What was your thought process at the time? Was it more like, I enjoy this subject, I want to take it further, or did you have a particular career vision? And how did that then lead you to eventually finding teaching and your calling, by the sounds of it?
So I think when the transition from GCSE to A level for me was very simple. I knew what subjects I liked. I knew what subjects I wanted to do. That was not really a question. And I chose my subjects without kind of looking beyond the 2 years of A level. It was only when we got into sixth, when we had to start thinking about choices after that, that was when I started to really think about what combinations of my subjects are going to lead me to. And I'll be very, very honest, I went through so many different things that I could have gone on to study. The first one was medicine, obviously, with, maths, biology, chemistry, economics. It was just ABC makes D, right? And I remember I went with a friend and I think it was in the summer between year 12 and year 13. We did like a little course at Oxford Brookes, like a day or two. And I remember coming out of it thinking, I'm not quite so sold as much on medicine, but let me just keep going. And then I did 2 work experiences. One at just a general hospital, and I kind of got to see different wards. And another one was in Burnt Oak, a geriatric psychiatric facility. And I think after I spent a week in each, I came out and I was like, I am not doing medicine. This is not for me. I just didn't think I had the stamina to hack it, and I didn't really have the motivation to want to do it. So I realized I was doing it for the sake of doing it. And so from there, deciding not to do medicine to deciding to do economics was a whole range of things, including, ridiculously, thinking I could do architecture. And I went into I looked into it, what would I actually need to provide? I don't take art, I don't take DT. Could I feasibly get into architecture? That lasted about 2 days. And then at the end of it all was just, well, actually, I really like economics as a subject. I'd enjoyed it at A level. It was new at A level to me. And I just thought, well, why not just carry on studying something that I like and then see where that goes? So I didn't have any, again, when I decided it was economics, I didn't have any further intentions or thinking beyond me applying to do economics. Unfortunately, within about a term, I realized I didn't really like economics. And I much more enjoyed the options that I was taking. So, I took an intro to psychology, intro to management, and maths as well. Like, I had to do maths as part of the course. And those things were much more interesting to me than the economics itself. But I was very stubborn, and I just thought, you know what? I was the one who decided economics. Other people have told me to try different things, and I said, no, I have to see this through. And so I saw through the 3 years, mainly enjoying kind of the subjects beyond the economics degree, but did what I needed to do. And, I realized immediately that I wasn't going to pursue a career linked to economics. My course had about 200, 250 students in my year, a lot of international students who were all gunning for the same jobs, the same summer internships, and I was just not a part of that world. I did a week at one of the Canary Wharf banks. I walked in, I walked out, and I was like, no, thank you. Like I feel like there was more to my life than that. I struggled to decide what it was that I wanted to do. And very honestly, I felt that the careers department were not massively helpful. I think they were very helpful if you knew what you wanted to do. If you were in economics and you knew you were going into economics research, or if you knew you were going into management consultancy, they were great at that. But when it was someone who's doing economics that doesn't want to do anything economics related after, there wasn't really much support. And I don't know how I came onto it, but I came onto the idea of PR. I managed to find myself a summer internship at a PR agency, very small, which then turned into like a part-time job in my holidays. And I really, really enjoyed it. It just gave me a lot of satisfaction. The results were very quick and very visible. And it was just such a dynamic, moving environment. It was just all very exciting. And you were talking to famous brands and you were talking to famous people. And I loved it. And so after I graduated, I managed to get a job straight away in another agency. Was initially like a 3-month internship, which then turned into a fixed job, which then a year later turned into a promotion. And it was all going like really, really well. They were really, really supportive until the point I realized, I mean, I don't know how much you know about PR, but I just felt like okay, so it's essentially, I like to call it free advertising. Advertising that's framed as news. So, you'll have a brand, they will have something they want to promote, a new product, or they've done a survey, or they just want to promote the brand and get it out there. So my job would be to call up all the different media outlets, online, in print, radio, and essentially sell a product, but as a news story. Or think of ways that we could have this product become a news story. So a lot of, the articles that you read, the RAC did a survey that 6 out of 10 drivers do X, Y, Z. They've only done that survey so they can get themselves printed in the newspaper, and you read the name RAC and then you go and think about RAC. There's no real actual news that comes from it. And I just thought, how am I benefiting society by doing this? I was good at it, I enjoyed it, but I just felt that my place in the world needed to be more than that. So I essentially reached a breaking point at one point. I remember it was in like November. I reached breaking point. I went home on a Friday. I was living with my parents, and I said, I can't do this anymore. And I think they tried really hard to convince me, okay, that's fine, but keep the job until you find something. And I couldn't. Monday morning, I went in and handed in my notice. And they were completely understanding. They were like, can you at least maybe just stay with us while you try and figure out what it is that you want to do? And I just thought, no, I need to cut off from this because it's not doing me any good. I'm going to come into work. I'm going to be resenting coming into work. And then outside of work, I'm not going to have the motivation to actually look into what it is I want to do. So I had a break of work for a few months. And I kept toying with the idea of teaching. It never really convinced me because I thought I don't have the patience for it. Like I just, me as a person, I tend to be quite impulsive. Hence the story of like breaking down on a Friday night and handing in my notice on a Monday morning. I've always been quite just go with my gut. And I just thought I probably can't handle a room full of 30 kids who I need to explain something to 5 times before they get it. I'm not going to have the patience for it. But in the end, I think months just kept passing. I'm just thinking I'm not getting anywhere with this research. Let me just try it. And it was more of a case of I'm going to do it. get my teaching degree. And then if it works, it doesn't work, it works. If it doesn't, I've got a teaching degree in the back of, my bag. I'll move on to the next thing. And once I decided, okay, I'm going to try teaching, it was then the decision of how am I going to go into teaching? Because there's so many different routes. And having gone through 3 years at uni, and I loved uni, but 3 years of studying something that I didn't really want to study, I thought I don't really want to go back to uni. So I went with Teach First. Teach First really spoke to me because I could get into the job straight away. Like, I'd be theoretically accepted onto the course, do a couple of weeks training, and then in September I would be straight in the classroom with support, doing my university assignments in the half terms and in the holidays, but I would be earning money, getting on the job experience. And I thought that's perfect because I don't have to physically go back to uni. I can get my degree this way while I'm working. Plus, don't have to pay for uni. I get paid. I mean, win-win. So I went with Teach First, and just for those who don't know Teach First, it's a charity, it's an educational charity which aims to reduce the impacts of social economic disadvantaged people. So obviously, we know a lot about how the education system works in the UK. Unfortunately, your postcode essentially defines your life for the majority of people. If you're born into a good area, you're more likely to have more positive and successful outcomes in your education and in your career. Teach First was trying to, and is still trying to, kind of abolish that idea and that concept. So once we were assigned to a location in the UK, for me, which was Wales, you were then assigned to a school in an underprivileged area. And that was the sell of Teach First. Everyone knew that was what they were going into. They were going to be in very tough schools. Think of educating, those educating series, Educating Yorkshire, Educating Manchester. Those were the kind of schools you were going into. And it was very, very difficult. But honestly, I look back on it and I just look back on it with such positive experiences. I think it helped me develop as a person. I hope to say that I made an impact on, one or two students' lives. You're never going to make an impact on a whole classroom, but that one or two that you do really stick with them, I do feel like I made that impact, and it helped me grow as a person. And I just thought, yeah, I like this. This feels right, and that's it. That was what, 12 years ago.
Amazing, amazing, Salma. And can I just say, I think what's so beautiful about your story is that when you realize you weren't enjoying things, you walked away straight away. I know when I've had times where things aren't feeling 100% correct, sometimes you just hang in there because of fear, hang in there because of the uncertainty if you leave. You just hang in there. But actually, it was better for you to just leave and then do your research and find teaching and go with it. And you make those decisions really quickly, Salma, which is incredible. And it must have been so amazing to see a completely different side of education, obviously from the education that we were all super privileged to have, right?
Yeah.
Being in Wales and teaching. And you said that was really character building. How do you think that changed you as a person?
I mean, the fact that I was able to kind of take the decisions that I did, quit my job, be unemployed for several months. Obviously, I could have only done that because of the privileged situation that I was in. I mean, I couldn't have, not everyone has the opportunity to do that. And I'm completely aware of that. And I think also, when I go back to Sudan, I see where my father grew up and I see the family that he still got that live out there in the villages. It heightens my awareness of the privilege that I have. And, not in trying to make myself feel guilty that I have this privilege, because that's not on me, but more about, well, how can I use that? And how can I better it for other people? How can I take my own experiences and support those, who may not have those experiences that I was privileged to have growing up? I mean, I can give you a really, really kind of anecdotal example. So that where I was teaching was in a small town just north of Newport, about a 20-minute drive from Cardiff. So Cardiff being the capital city of Wales, I personally was living in Cardiff and I would drive the 20 minutes to school and then 20 minutes back. This community of people, their parents went to this school. Their parents went to this school. And like, there were teachers who, on parents' evenings would be teaching to parents, but they also taught those parents. It was a very, very closed community. No one really ever left. And for me, moving from London, capital city of the UK, to Cardiff, capital city of Wales, it made me so aware that there were just so many different worlds within such a small radius. I was commuting every day from Cardiff. These students, going to Cardiff for them, 20 minutes away, would be a birthday treat. It'd be like a once a year thing that my parents are taking me to Cardiff this weekend because it's my birthday. And that just kind of made me so much more aware, so much more sensitive to different people's experiences, and always making sure that I don't assume, I don't prejudice. Obviously, you can't do that 100% of the time, but it does just make me question things a lot more than I used to.
Did that help with, you were saying you're concerned that you might not have the patience for teaching, but then when you were able to put, say, your classroom into context about what challenges they may have beyond school, did that help? Did you feel like that patience thing was an issue at all?
No, I don't really know what happened to the patience thing, because it just, as soon as I was in the classroom, that kind of went away.
Okay.
I seemed to have an understanding of how to approach these kids and how to teach them whatever it was that I was trying to teach them. I'm still very impatient in my own life. Like, I'm still very impulsive. I still want, if I decide I want to do something, I want it to happen immediately. But when I'm in the classroom, that all seems to change, and can't really put my finger on why.
That's interesting.
Maybe it feels so right for you.
Yeah,
Sometimes I think,
Yeah.
our mind creates these little things and doubts in your head that, oh, that's not for me because I'm like this. Or,
Yeah.
I really don't feel I can do that. I'm not made for that. Like, that's not my cup of tea. But it just shows, I think, if you really have found your calling, which I think you have, Salma, that it
Yeah.
feels good, it feels right, and those little whispers just disappear,
Go away. Yeah.
which is
I think
really,
part of
really
it is also because for me, as I described to you, I've never really known what to do. I've always felt a little bit lost. And I think being a teacher, I can help in that way with certain students. Like, you're lost, but okay, when you're in my classroom, I'm going to help you find the way. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, actually, it was that's really, really candid. Thank you for sharing that. I think because you can
Yeah.
resonate from, those times when you've just been, this is not quite right for me, or I don't know what to do. And I think that's really common. And I think sometimes it doesn't go away for everybody. Like, you'll be at different stages of life, or it may not be just even career related. But often you might get to these stages where, like, okay, I'm a little bit lost and I don't know what to do. And I think,
Yeah.
but what's really beautiful is how much clarity you have, or self-assurance you have, that when you realize something's not for you, you'll do something about it. And you may not be thinking 5 years, 10 years down the line, but you're just like, the next thing. Okay, let me
Yeah.
try this. Let's see if this feels. And I think you really have a strong connection to your gut, because you know when something feels right. Like, you can sense that something feels right. So I want to kind of progress from Wales off, and then you've completed your teaching degree, and then you landed a job at an international school in Sudan. And
Yes.
that was probably, I presume, but you can correct me, an international itch, kind of creeping in to be like, I've got this degree and I can go anywhere with this. And so tell us about that transition.
So, I mean, as I mentioned, my family is Sudanese. I would spend all my summer holidays in Sudan at my grandparents' house. It was, they were great summers. Everyone would come over from wherever they were, all the cousins at the same time, because it was the summer holidays. And I just felt that I'd like to go back and have the opportunity to experience the full living experience there, but also to be able to give back. from the privileges that I've had being educated in the UK, to kind of give my share back to the country. So when I moved, I found it difficult because for several reasons. Firstly, I thought I knew Sudan. Going for holidays, I thought I knew it. I knew what I was exposed to, which was my granddad's house, my cousins coming over. Maybe one day we'd do a trip to the capital and go out for dinner all together. Couple of trips out of the city to go and visit other family. But I didn't really know the capital city that much, which is where I relocated to. I didn't know the international scene at all, because when I would go there, I wouldn't really interact with anyone from the international context. It was just Sudanese people. So Sudan and Khartoum really surprised me about how much there was going on, how much presence there was from international communities, embassies, all these different and amazing cultural events that were going on that were incorporating Sudanese people as well. And it was beautiful. I had never seen Sudan like that. It was pre-existing my arrival there, but I only was aware of it when I got there in that situation. So that really opened my eyes to how much there was going on, and I just completely wasn't aware of it. The second thing that I really struggled with was my own identity within the country. Now, I am British born and raised with Sudanese heritage. I'm Sudanese, but I'm British, but I'm not white, so I'm not British. Like it was all a bit of a mix, and I never really fully understood it until I moved to Sudan. So like when I would go for holidays, people may have laughed because I had an accent when I was speaking Arabic, or, they say, oh, the English people have come over for their summer holidays, but I was a kid. Like that all just kind of went over my head. But when I moved, I found myself stuck in a place where I didn't really belong, because Sudanese people, as wonderful as they are, for reasons that I can completely understand, did not see me as Sudanese. Facially, or my features, like my skin color, I was. But I spoke Arabic with an English accent. My mentality and my views were completely different to theirs. The way I dressed, although modestly, was not how they dressed. And for them, I was a foreigner. Like that was it. On the other hand, you go to, let's say, my other counterpart, which is the British side of it. And when I say British, I'm talking about, not to categorize, but I'm talking about mainly white people coming over from the UK who have, white heritage from the UK, which is not what I have. And so they look at me, and rightfully so, say, okay, you're Sudanese, you speak Arabic, cool. So no one really accepted me as theirs. So that was a very difficult 4 years for me, trying to figure out where I wanted to place myself. Who did I want to go with? Did I want to be more Sudanese? Did I want to be more British? I was very confused. And I left the country very confused about my own identity. And it probably didn't help that I then met a white man and married him. That added even more to that confusion. But after going through all of that and leaving and having spoken to a professional about it, I realized I don't need to fit into 2 separate categories. I can have my own category. And that experience, despite being very difficult for me, I'm very grateful for, because now we are raising a mixed race child. And I don't ever want him to go through an identity crisis like I had, because I want, from a young age, him to understand that identity is not one thing. It's a mixture of things, and it's a mixture of things that you choose to identify with, whether someone else accepts you as that or not. So Sudan had its ups and downs for me. But I do look back on it with a very, very positive experience.
Hey, are you enjoying this episode? If you are, you might love our monthly newsletter. It's where Nehal and I share podcast updates, community news, upcoming events, reflections, ideas, and some fun extras. You can sign up at the link in the show notes. Now, back to the conversation. That's the second time you've said something about I was in a really challenging situation, but actually I grew so much or I learned so much, and you looked back at it with such positivity. So you said that about Wales, you said that about Sudan, and I think that's an amazing probably characteristic or spirit that you have about you, Salma, where you can reframe a difficult situation to say, what did I learn from it? How did it grow me? What did it teach me? And that's a really lovely sort of nugget for our listeners, and that's something I'm actually learning about you as well, Salma, because I haven't heard about these perspectives around these situations. The other thing I wanted to add actually was that I feel like around identity, I think for children of immigrant parents who've immigrated, or you've been raised in a country that your parents didn't grow up in, or not, or your heritage is from another country to the one you're growing up in, it's really, really common to have this sort of dilemma about who am I, and because you're too, like for us, we were too brown to be white and too white to be brown. So even when we went to India, absolutely, we stood out like sore thumbs. And I remember after I graduated, I really wanted to spend, like, we never had like close family there where we'd spend summers, so I was very disconnected. Like at home, like the culture, the food and the language, everything was so Indian, but I had no real connection to the country itself, or that's how I felt. So I really felt like to prove something, I had to stay there for like 4-6 weeks, or like that gap between my graduation and when I started working, to kind of almost connect within. I think that's what it was that was pushing me to do that, and to find a sense of belonging, because I knew I never, like, internally, like, of course I had friends and I was happy where I was growing up, but I didn't feel like I belonged. And then it was only through experiences and maturity, I guess, what you said, identity is not one thing. You don't have to fit into a box, and I think that's the biggest realization, that you feel like you have to be here, or you have to fit yourself in this box. There is no box. You take the best bits of your heritage, your culture, your experiences when you're growing, everything, and that contribute to making who you are. And when we kind of get rid of these, like, I have to fit into a box, I have to choose whether I'm British or Asian, or which one am I more, or whatever, and you kind of just let go and just embrace yourself for who you are, there's an immense sense of peace, I think, that comes from within. Going back to, you moved to Sudan to further your career, and you left with a husband. Tell us about that a little bit more.
It's funny, my sister jokes that she's like, only you could go to Sudan and find an Italian man to marry. Like, what are the chances that only you could do that? So I went. I think it's funny. I think I like to think that, and I truly believe, things happen in my life, in people's lives, for a reason, and that's not to take away any us, not having to put in the effort. Well, everything's going to work out because it's gonna. No, you're going to be presented with opportunities, and they're going to be presented in a way that they will work out how they need to work out, if that makes sense. Now, me meeting my husband, I felt was very much that case, because there are a series of events that took place, and had at any point in that series of events something changed, I would have never met him. So when I was coming to the end of my 2 years in Wales, I was deciding what to do next. Now, my initial dream, which is no longer a dream, and you can make your own assumptions as to why, was to move to the US. I was like, I had this 20-year-old, I want to move to New York, I want to move to Washington, live the life in the US. That didn't work out. I couldn't find myself a job opportunity where, with the qualifications I had, I could apply for a job there. So I had to give up on that idea. When I gave up on that idea, the school that I was working in at the time then offered me to stay on beyond my 2 years. And I considered it for a couple of weeks. And then I realized, I think, actually, no, I'm ready to move on from this place, despite what it's given me. And so I reached a position where I was like, well, what am I going to do now? I don't want to move back to London, because I've now seen what's beyond London. I don't really want to go back. if it's not gonna be London, but it's the UK, well then where? Because I don't really know much about the rest of the UK. I might have considered the Gulf, so like Dubai, all of those places in the Middle East. And then the other place that I had in my mind was Sudan. And Sudan was always there as an idea, but it was for me a little bit later on in my career. I wanted to maybe have a bit more fun exploring first and then go and do maybe 2 years or so in Sudan. Looking for job opportunities in the Middle East, nothing really that stood out to me. I was like, okay, fine, let me look at Sudan and see what happens. So I found a job in an international school there, applied for it through a recruiter, and then I heard back from the recruiter that they had gone with another applicant because they had more experience teaching IB, and I didn't have any experience teaching IB. Thought, fine, fair enough, no problem. Thank you very much for your help. So this was on like a Thursday or a Friday. I remember it so clearly, Thursday or Friday. On the Saturday, I found another job in another international school in Khartoum, applied for it. The Sunday, the head replied to me and said to me, I'm going to be in London this week. Can you come and meet me for a coffee and we can have a chat about this job? So Saturday, I applied. Thursday, I was at the British Library meeting the head teacher of this school, who just so happened to be in London at the time. And it was a very informal thing. We had a quick chat. I really liked him. He really liked me. He offered me the job on the spot. And I was like, Ace, this is the easiest interview I've ever had. So I accepted this job, moved out. When I was where I was, we were in the capital, right in like downtown, center of where everything's happening, down the road from the presidential palace. And across the road from where I was teaching and living, there was a college that there was the primary and secondary, but then there was also the college. So college also had short courses of languages, and I was looking for a way to just meet people. I didn't really have a social group. So someone suggested to me, oh, why don't you go and start some courses, language courses over there? I was like, oh, okay, cool, sounds really good. So I went. The group that I was talking to had originally said to me, let's go do Italian. I thought, oh, I don't really have any interest in Italian language. Okay, fine. Went across the road, went to the reception. I was like, oh my God, they've got Spanish. And I did Spanish for AS, and I thought, perfect, I can pick up my Spanish. No, the courses only happened when I was teaching at school, so I couldn't do Spanish. Fine, I'll do Italian then. Walk into the Italian lesson. Teacher stood in the front of the classroom, is the person that is now my husband. So if I had found a job in the US, I would have never have met him. If I had been accepted at the first school that I applied to in Sudan, I would have never met him. If I had found a course that was Spanish that worked for me, I would have never have met him. And it was just all these things just seemed to work out in the right direction for me to then eventually meet him. So yeah, that's how I ended up with an Italian man.
That is amazing. I think the internationality, if that's even a word, that you, your husband, and your gorgeous son have is just incredible. And Salma, you literally leave us lost for words. How did you navigate? How did you navigate a like cross-cultural relationship? Because the Italian culture and Sudanese culture are totally different. I mean, there's some things that are very much the same, just thinking off the top of my head, is the love of family, the love of food, you know,
100%.
and you know, having those special relationships and those connections are really important. But how did you navigate the whole cultural aspect of things?
So like, if you ask my husband, and I'm not saying this to kind of, you know, big up my ego, but he literally will say this, that for him it was love at first sight. Like he immediately like wanted to further a relationship with me. For me, that wasn't the case. I was not in a place where I was looking to settle down, find a husband, get married, and so on. Like I was just at the start of me exploring my life and my world, and I did not have that in mind. When I clocked onto the fact that he liked me, still, I never really took it so seriously because I thought, because of the big cultural differences, because of the religious differences, there's no point in me investing in this potential to see where it could go, because I'm going to reach a point further down the line where this is just going to have to end. So I never really saw it as anything more. I just, okay, this guy likes me, he's texting me, I'll text back. A bit of very, very, very innocent, just fun. And then at some point down the line, I don't know what it was, I don't know, I started to actually like him. So I found that we were very similar in the sense of, and I think I say similar because he had really embraced the Sudanese culture. Like he'd at that point where I had met him, he had been living in Sudan for about 5 years. And anyone you speak to would say to you, he's more Sudanese than I am. Like more Sudanese, than any other Sudanese that you'd meet down the road. He'd learned the language, he'd understood the culture, he had a group of friends that were Sudanese, he would spend time with really only Sudanese people. And I think the fact that he completely embraced the Sudanese culture, that's what made me feel like we had similarities, because we had that overlap. And then I remember telling my parents about him the first holiday I went back to the UK, so the Christmas time. By the way, I met him really, really quickly. Like I moved in July, I met him in like October. So in Christmas time, went back to London, told my parents about him, really worried about what they were going to say. But they were like, you know what? If he's a good guy, that's all we really want for you. Obviously, there's the context of the religion, and we can tackle that later on. But as long as it's a thing that's been talked about and is out there, fine. And my parents then met him later on, and it just all seemed to click. His values were very much in line with mine, very much in line with my family's values. And I think there were difficulties. Obviously, being in Sudan, and you guys have been there and visited, and I'm sure you can relate to maybe in India as well, there is a hierarchy of races and genders. And if you are a white male, as you would be in many places of the world, but particularly in Sudan, if you're a white male, you're at the top of the food chain. Like even, all the Sudanese male want to please you, want to look up to you. I, however, was down the very other end of the scale. Female, Sudanese, Muslim. Like I was the furthest down that you could go on that scale. And I think it took a long time for Matia to really understand how it was for me to be living in Sudan. For him, it was great. All doors were open to him. He could do whatever he wanted. He could talk to whoever he wanted. He could drive to wherever he wanted. I did not have that. I had so many more limitations on me. I had to think about what I was wearing just to go to the corner shop to buy some milk. Like he could just leave the house in his flip-flops and shorts and t-shirt and no one would bat an eyelid. I had to properly get dressed and leave the house and decide which way I'm going. So I'm not walking down an alleyway where I'm the only person walking down the road. And like I said, it took him a while to realize that, but once he did, I think it opened his eyes a lot more to, if we were to have a family here, don't really know how comfortable I would feel raising a daughter, let's say, in that context where she's made to feel uncomfortable. And it was trying to find that balance of all the aspects of Sudan that we loved, namely the people and the values that they had, but also all the negatives that came with it. And we realized, this is the battle that we're not going to win. So at that point was when we decided we were going to leave. It was a very hard decision to make. And I think if it wasn't for me, and if Matia had not met me, the likelihood is he'd probably still be living there, or would have still been living there until the war broke out. I think in terms of now and how we are now, like in our relationship and in the cultures, we're still finding our way, especially now that we've got another person to think about. Okay, you were brought up in Italy, you were celebrating Easter, you were celebrating Christmas. I was brought up in the UK, but I was celebrating Eid, I was fasting Ramadan. how are we going to manage that for him? And we've just decided at this point in time, we're going to expose him to all of it, because it's part of both of our lives, and it should all of it be part of his life. So it's more about now embracing it all rather than, well, actually, this is not me, so I'm just not going to do it. Well, no, this is all coming from my experiences, so we're gonna share in those together.
That's beautiful, really beautiful, and just yeah, I guess it's completely uncharted territory, right? When you're raising a human in the society we are, doesn't matter where you are, but in a context of just multicultural influences, right? And it's so different and alien to perhaps your experiences as a child, so you can't even
Yeah.
really you need to find your own way, like you just said. And I think that's that brings that's a huge responsibility in a way, isn't it? I feel sometimes as a parent, but I would love to talk a little bit about how do you go about rebuilding or resetting your life in a new place, because you did it obviously when you were a child. You moved from the UK to Dubai and back to the UK, but I guess you were a child, so you're kind of not really,
That wasn't on me.
it wasn't on you exactly. But
Yeah.
then you made the decision to move to Khartoum, and then COVID meant that you had to move back, but then you had to figure out where are we going to stay. Then you settled for the UK for a bit and now are in Thailand. So tell us about your thought process. Say someone's listening to this and they're like, "Do you know, I have an international itch. I can work abroad. I want to do it, but I'm scared to leave what I know, or I don't know how to do that either by myself or with a partner." Like, what, like
Even with a
top three
little one.
tips? Yeah,
Yeah.
would you share?
So I have to say, I completely underestimated the move to Thailand. Now, I'll prefix that with saying we are ridiculously happy here, and we're so happy with the choice that we've made. But I think I was very naive, because I thought, oh, well, I've moved so many times, it's just going to be like that. So, like you said, between Dubai and then back to the UK, yeah, okay, fine. I was a child. I didn't really have any responsibilities there. Moving to Sudan, I thought, well, that was really easy. Moving back to the UK, that was pretty easy too. So theoretically, moving to Thailand shouldn't be a big deal. Oh my God, I was so wrong. And it was only after kind of a couple of months of moving here that I realized why I had found it so difficult. It's because I was just in a completely different context and part of my life. Before, it was just me. I didn't have to worry about anybody else, partner or young one. And if anything went wrong, the only consequence was me. And that would be a pretty easy fix. I just moved back. The second thing was moving to Sudan and then moving back to the UK. Those are two places that I know very, very well. They're two cultures that I completely understand and have been exposed to my entire life. So even that, despite me moving to Khartoum and saying, it was a city that I had never lived in before, I still spoke the language, I still understood the culture, I still more or less knew my way around. Here was completely not that case. I'd moved not by myself, but with a husband. I moved with a 3-year-old. Moved to a country where the cuisine is completely different, the language is completely different, the climate is completely different. And it was just, I'd say probably September and October. We moved in August. September and October were two really, really difficult months for all of us. And it took a while for us to all reach our equilibrium. But I think if I had been more aware of how difficult it was going to be, I might have been more mentally prepared to deal with it. And I think it's being open to recognizing that it's going to be a difficult move, and that it's not just going to all click into place straight away. It's going to take time for you to settle into the new job as well, because that's also another factor. Settle into your new environment, find the right place to live, figure out the people that you like to spend time with, figure out the hobbies that you're going to take part in. And that's not something that's going to happen overnight or in a week or in a month. It's going to take a couple of months. And then add on top of that, more time for every person that you're moving with you. So like you're moving with a husband or a wife, you're going to need time to adjust not just yourself into the situation, but you as a couple into that situation, your child as well. You know, our son, initially, we thought, oh, he's not really going to understand what's happening. But we moved, first couple of weeks, he was great. You know, for him, he thought it was a holiday. We're like, he loved it. About a month in, I think it all clicked for him, even though he couldn't really verbalize it. Oh, actually, this is not a holiday. This is now our life. And that was when we started to see some behaviors that became a little bit more challenging, which was him communicating to us that he was finding this a little bit difficult. And that took a couple of months to settle down. But it's just being able to push through that transition phase. There's a lot of admin stuff that comes along with it. It's not just move and, you know, you're done, pack your bags, unpack your bags. All of the stuff that you've got to close off in your home country, all of the stuff that you've got to open up in your new country, transferring things over, licenses, being able to get around. I would say you'd need to give yourself probably at least 6 months before you can start really deciding if you've made the right choice or not, or if you might want to start really enjoying where you are at that moment in time. Because if you had spoken to me in October, I would be saying to you, I think we made the wrong choice. I think we need to go back to the UK. Now, I'm saying to you, I'm never going back to the UK. Like, no, not at all, not a chance. Like, we're going to be here for a while. And that's just the difference of a few months.
And what helps you or helps a family or person that's moved internationally get through those first few months that you know are going to be tough? Or are you just riding through it? Or was there something that really helped you guys?
I think if it's, let's talk about you're moving with someone, I think it's that communication. Because, you know, we'd reached a point where every evening, me and my husband, we were not like enjoying our evenings together. We were just doing admin stuff, like life admin. And it had just become like so tedious because I was going to work in the morning, still myself adjusting to the new context of work, coming home feeling like I don't really understand what I'm doing at work, to then just have to do more work. And it had become a bit of a strain. And it was there where we had to like communicate to each other, right? We are not in a phase where we can spend time together as a couple, but we need to get through certain things. So each evening, for example, we're going to do 2 tasks, tick them off, and then each of us is just going to do whatever we want to do to chill out and zone out before we go to sleep, rather than trying to force spending time together. Now, obviously, that was our particular scenario, but the point is the communication. It's, I need a break. Fine, okay, I'll look after our son. You go out, clear your head a little bit, and come back. And I think that's just, it's the case anyways with any relationship, is that being able to communicate when things are a bit much and you just need to have a moment from each other, but also recognize that there are certain things that need to be done and that each person needs to put their best foot forward, even though what they might want to be doing right now is actually the opposite of, you know, calling the bank and setting up your ID and all of this and that. Is that communication and that awareness of what needs to be done, what is urgent, but also knowing if it's not that urgent, what can we be doing instead to decompress from the day that we've both had.
And it's also not being afraid to raise it, right? Like sometimes I suppose you can feel that, you know, it's such a stressful time for both of you. You're like, oh, I just don't want to add to the stress by raising anything, but actually you're adding to the stress by not raising it. So it's important to say something and deal with it. I think that's it. You're right. It's communicate and deal with it and then keep going.
Yeah, completely. And we've spoken about it now. Like we think back to that period of 2-3 months when we first moved, and we're like, oh my God, that was really hard. Like it's probably, apart from COVID, which was hard for everyone, that was probably one of the hardest moments in our lives, like as a couple. But actually, where we are now, and we talk about it all the time, we're like, actually, we're in the best place that we've ever been as a couple in our relationship. Like, we've never been better than this. And all we had to do was push through those initial transition months to be able to see the light.
Oh,
But that's it, right?
Definitely.
It's never always going to be smooth. You're always going to have those rocky patches, like in life, and sometimes it is really easy to just say, "Oh, sod it, let's just go back," or like this is not
Yeah.
working out, and to throw the towel in. But it's so amazing sometimes when if you do persist and persevere and stick out those challenging roller coaster sort of moments and times, that something beautiful could be at the other end of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess I'm really pleased to hear that things are, going really well, and also a little bit like you're not coming back, but no,
Which
so
is all
thrilled.
all the more reason for people to come and visit us
Yeah,
in Wayne
absolutely,
slash.
absolutely. No, for sure. But yeah, no, thrilled that you guys have found your feet and are and loving life out there. As we close, I would just like to give you the opportunity, Salma, to share with our audience, our listeners, one sort of message that you would like to leave them with, something close to your heart, something that's inspiring to you, something you feel very strongly about.
That is very hard. I wish you'd pre-warned me.
Sorry.
Um, I think, like I said, I'm a very impulsive person, and I think it was Nahal who said it earlier. I think trust your gut and trust your instinct. Things will not always work out, but you'll never know if you don't try. And they might not, but at least you can say you've tried. On the other hand, like in our situation, they might actually work out to be the best things that has ever happened to you, and you would have never known that unless you tried it yourself. So it's if you've got a gut instinct or something that you want to do, and it's feasible to do. Obviously, I'm not talking about chasing dreams that are impossible to achieve. If it's something that's within your realm of access, why not?
Amazing. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you,
being here,
Salma.
Salma.
Thank you guys very much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoy this episode, don't forget to hit follow on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and to hit subscribe on YouTube so that you never miss a new one. It really helps if you rate and review the show, and if you found this episode valuable, share it with a friend, family member, or colleague. We appreciate your support and we'll catch you next time. Bye bye.